It's funny how certain moments in life can change everything. You think things are going fine, you're just going about your day, and then one moment, one little incident, can flip everything upside down. I never thought anything like this would happen to me, but looking back I can't help but feel that maybe, just maybe, I was on the verge of something I shouldn't have let myself get close to. I don't even know where to start, but I guess the best place would be right here with my stepson. It all started one evening. I was in the living room reading a book when I heard a knock on my bedroom door. My stepson, Jesse, was standing there looking kind of flustered. He's not the type to ask for help, but that day he did. "Hey, can you help me with something?" he asked, his voice a little hesitant. I wasn't sure what he needed help with, but I told him to come in. "I need you to fix my belt," he said, stepping into the room and closing the door behind him. First, I didn't think much of it. It's not a big deal, right? He's just a kid. Well, not a kid exactly, but he's my stepson. He's in his early 20s, not some teenager anymore. Still, I could tell something felt different about this request. Maybe it was the way he was acting, a little too casual, or the way his eyes seemed to linger on me more than usual. But I brushed it off. "Sure," I said, moving toward him. "Let me see." I approached him, and that's when it happened. As I reached out to adjust his belt, his pants slipped just a little. Not a lot, but enough for me to notice. I could feel my heart race for no reason at all. Maybe it was just a fluke, maybe he was just uncomfortable, I don't know. But then he looked at me, really looked at me, and I swear there was something in his eyes that wasn't there before. His usual laid-back demeanor was gone, replaced by something else. A tension, an energy that I couldn't quite put my finger on. I wanted to pull away. I really did. But instead I just stood there, frozen for a second longer than I should have. And that's when it happened. The thing that would haunt me for days after. "Thanks," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, his hand brushing against mine as he stepped back. "I appreciate it." But something didn't feel right. That moment lingered in the air like a secret neither of us wanted to acknowledge. And that was just the beginning. The next few days after that, well, they were strange. I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between Jesse and me. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, that I was overthinking things, but every time I saw him I felt it, a kind of tension I couldn't ignore. It wasn't just the way he looked at me when he asked for help with his belt. It was like he was always around now, popping up unexpectedly. His presence too close. His tone a little too casual when he spoke to me. And I couldn't help but notice how his eyes followed me, like he was studying me, trying to figure me out. I don't know why it bothered me so much. Maybe I was just paranoid. He was my stepson after all. I'd known him since he was young. He wasn't some stranger. We had our boundaries, or at least I thought we did. But then, one evening it happened again. I was in the kitchen just finishing dinner, when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around expecting to see my husband, but it was Jesse. "Hey, can I talk to you for a second?" he asked, his voice a little strained. I set the dish I was holding down and wiped my hands on a towel. "What's up?" he asked. He hesitated, glancing around as if making sure no one else was around. "I just wanted to say thanks again for the other day. It was kind of awkward, and I didn't want you to think I don't know, like I was making things weird." I raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" He shifted uncomfortably, looking down at the floor for a moment. With the whole belt thing. My stomach tightened at the mention of it. I'd been trying to forget about that moment, but now it was back. I could feel my face flush. I forced myself to stay calm, to act like it was nothing. "Jesse, it was no big deal. I'm sure you were just... I just don't want you to feel uncomfortable," he interrupted. I don't know, maybe it was weird, but I don't know, it just felt like we were closer than I expected. I don't know how to explain it. Maybe I'm just messing things up. He sounded genuinely nervous, and for a moment, I almost believed him. But there was something in the way he said it that didn't sit right with me. It was like he was testing me, pushing my boundaries without even realizing it, or maybe he did realize it. Maybe that was the point. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my composure. "Jesse, don't worry about it. I'm not uncomfortable. It was just a small thing. Nothing more." But as I said the words, I couldn't help but feel a little off. I wanted to believe him, to brush it aside like I'd done before, but this time I wasn't so sure. There was something unspoken between us, something that had shifted and lingered in the air after that first incident. And for some reason I couldn't let it go. "Okay," he said, a hint of relief in his voice. "I'm glad. I just didn't want to make things weird between us." I nodded, but inside I couldn't help but feel like things were getting weird. That night, as I lay in bed, I kept thinking about what had happened. I tried to push the thoughts out of my mind, but they wouldn't go away. That look in his eyes, the way his hand brushed mine, it felt like more than just an accident. It felt like he was testing the waters, seeing how far he could go without crossing a line. And maybe, just maybe, I was too willing to let him. The days passed, and the tension between Jesse and me continued to build like a storm brewing in the distance. Every time I saw him there was this weight in the air. I could feel it. He would smile at me, but it was different. There was something behind it, something hidden. He was being careful, almost as if he knew how close he was getting to crossing some invisible line, and I was starting to feel it too. The line between what was appropriate and what wasn't was becoming blurrier by the day. One evening my husband was out of town for a business trip, and I was home alone with Jesse. It wasn't unusual for us to be in the house together, but there was always this unspoken rule about keeping things normal, keeping things safe. But with each passing day, I felt like that normalcy was slipping through my fingers. I was sitting in the living room watching TV when Jesse walked in. He was holding a book, but his eyes weren't on it. They were on me. "Hey," he said, sitting down on the couch next to me. His body was closer than it usually was. It wasn't just a casual sit anymore. It felt intentional. "Hi," I said, not looking at him, trying to focus on the show, but I could feel him. I could feel his presence beside me like a weight pressing down on my chest. "Is it okay if I ask you something?" he said quietly. His voice sounded different this time. More serious, more deliberate. I glanced over at him, trying to gauge his expression. "Sure, what's up?" he asked. He shifted, looking uncomfortable. I don't know if I should be asking this, but I've been thinking about something. Something that happened before." I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. I knew exactly what he was referring to. The belt incident. That damn belt. "What about it?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I don't know," he said, running a hand through his hair. "I don't want you to think I'm weird or anything, but ever since that day I don't know. It's like I can't stop thinking about it. About you." He paused, his eyes locking with mine. "You make me feel safe. You make me feel like I can talk to you about stuff. I don't know if that makes sense." His words hung in the air, and I felt like the room had just gotten 10 degrees hotter. My heart raced, my thoughts were scrambled, and I had no idea what to say. This wasn't just about a belt anymore. This wasn't just about him asking for help. He was saying things that were crossing a line, not in a physical way but emotionally, mentally. I tried to laugh it off, to make it seem like he was just being dramatic. "Jesse, you're overthinking this." It was nothing really. But even as the words left my mouth, I knew they weren't true, because in that moment, it was something. It was more than I was willing to admit, more than I was ready to face. He leaned in a little closer, and I could smell his cologne. My heart was pounding, my mind racing with confusion. What was he doing? Why was he acting like this? "I know it's probably crazy," he said, his voice soft and low, "but I feel like we have a connection. Like maybe we're more alike than you think. And I don't want to feel guilty about it. I just want to know you better." His words were like a punch to the gut. I couldn't breathe. Had to pull away. I had to put some distance between us. "Jesse," I said, my voice trembling, "we can't. This isn't something we can talk about. It's not right." He immediately backed off, looking like he regretted what he had said. "Sorry. I didn't mean to make things weird." But it was already too late. The damage was done. The line had been crossed, and now there was no going back. I couldn't pretend like nothing had happened. I couldn't pretend that I wasn't feeling something too. I stood up, trying to regain my composure. "I think you should go to bed." He nodded silently, standing up as well, but his eyes never left mine. And as he walked away, I realized something. This was the moment when everything changed. There was no turning back now. The lines had blurred, and I didn't know where this was headed, but I knew it was a dangerous path to follow. The next day, things were quiet between Jesse and me. Too quiet. The words we'd exchanged the night before hung between us like an unspoken tension that neither of us knew how to address. I didn't want to confront him, and I sure as hell didn't want to admit that everything had changed, but I could feel it, like an invisible wall had gone up between us, one that neither of us was willing to break down. I went about my usual routine, trying to keep my mind off of everything. I kept myself busy, focusing on the small things, anything to distract myself from the lingering feelings of guilt and confusion. But Jesse wasn't making it easy. It wasn't just what he'd said, it was the way he'd looked at me. Every time I saw him, there was a flicker of something in his eyes, something I couldn't quite put into words. And every time our eyes met, it was like an electric current ran through me. But then, as the days went by, Jesse started acting distant. He avoided me like he was ashamed of what had happened. It was almost like he was trying to pretend it hadn't occurred, like he didn't feel what he'd said the night before. He was cold, distant, and it felt like a slap in the face. It was a Saturday afternoon when everything changed again. I was sitting on the porch, enjoying the warm weather, when I heard footsteps approaching. I didn't need to look up to know who it was. It was Jesse. He stood there for a moment, his hands stuffed in his pockets, staring at the ground like he was weighing his options. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice softer than usual. I put down my book and nodded, unsure of what he wanted. He sat down next to me, leaving a comfortable amount of space between us. It was awkward, and I could feel the tension building in the air. Neither of us knew what to say next. "I've been thinking about what happened," he began, looking down at his hands, "and I know I messed up. I shouldn't have said all that stuff. I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable. I never meant to do that." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "Jesse, I don't know what you want me to say. It's complicated. What you said, it crossed a line, and I don't know how to go back from that." He nodded, his eyes filled with regret. "Get it? I don't know why I said it. I guess I was just confused, and I didn't want to hide how I felt, but I realized now that it was wrong." I felt a strange mixture of relief and confusion. Relief because he was acknowledging what had happened, but confused because I still didn't know how to feel about it. I couldn't just brush it off as if nothing had changed. Something had shifted, something that felt real, something that felt dangerous. We sat there in silence for a while, neither of us knowing how to fill the space between us. Finally, Jesse spoke again, his voice barely above a whisper. "I just don't want things to be weird between us. I don't want to lose whatever this is." I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. The way he said it, so vulnerable, so unsure, made me want to reach out to reassure him, to tell him that everything would be fine. But deep down I knew that wasn't true. Everything wasn't fine, and it wouldn't be fine. I stood up, suddenly needing to put some distance between us. "I think we need some time." "We both do." Jesse stood up too, looking like he wanted to say more but didn't know how. "Okay, I understand. I hope things don't stay weird." I turned away, not trusting myself to speak. I didn't know what was going to happen next. I didn't know if this was the end of it, or if we were both just trying to pretend that everything was normal when it wasn't. But one thing was for sure. Nothing would ever be the same again. The weeks after that conversation felt like walking on eggshells. Jesse and I barely spoke, and when we did, it was like we were both trying too hard to keep things casual, pretending that everything was fine when I knew deep down it wasn't. The distance between us grew, and with it, the awkwardness that seemed to hang in the air like a thick fog. But then, one night everything changed again. My husband was away on another business trip, and I was home alone. It wasn't unusual, but this time, Jesse was acting different. He was quieter, more withdrawn, and I couldn't shake the feeling that he was waiting for something. I didn't know what, but the tension between us was palpable. I was in the kitchen making dinner when Jesse walked in. This time he didn't hesitate. He just stood in the doorway watching me. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice almost urgent. I stopped what I was doing, my heart skipping a beat. I nodded, even though I wasn't sure I was ready to have this conversation again. "What about?" He stepped closer, his gaze intense. "I need to get something off my chest." My pulse quickened, a sense of dread creeping up my spine. The last time he had said something like that, everything had spiraled out of control. Was this going to be the same? "I've been thinking about us," he said, his eyes never leaving mine, "about everything that happened. And I know you're probably tired of hearing me talk about it, but I can't stop thinking about it. I can't stop thinking about you." My breath caught in my throat. "Jesse, no." But he cut me off. "Please just hear me out. I don't know what this is, but it's more than I can ignore. And I know it's messed up. I know we shouldn't be having this conversation, but I can't help it." He stepped closer and I felt my body freeze. He wasn't just standing there now. He was in my space. His presence overwhelming. My heart was racing and I could feel my palms sweating. I wanted to push him away, to tell him to leave, but part of me couldn't move. Part of me didn't want to. "I know this is wrong," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "but I can't stop thinking about you. I can't stop thinking about the way we've been connected, the way I've felt around you, and I need to know if you feel the same way, if you've thought about it even once." I didn't know what to say. The words were stuck in my throat, and for a moment I felt like I couldn't breathe. This wasn't supposed to happen. This wasn't supposed to be real. But here he was, standing in front of me. His eyes full of something I couldn't deny, something I hadn't wanted to admit to myself. I stepped back, shaking my head. "Jesse, stop. This isn't what you think. It's not. It's not right." But he wasn't listening. His hand reached out, brushing against mine, and for a brief moment, I felt a jolt of electricity pass between us. "I'm not going to stop," he said softly, his voice full of conviction. "And I don't want you to stop either. I can't pretend like nothing's happening anymore." My heart was pounding in my chest. I could feel the pull between us, a gravity I couldn't escape. But I also knew what it would mean if I let it happen. I knew the consequences, the pain, the heartbreak. I pulled away more forcefully this time. "No, Jesse. This can't happen." He stepped back, his face falling, but there was no mistaking the frustration in his eyes. "I don't want to lose you, okay? I don't want to pretend anymore." I stood there, frozen, feeling the weight of his words settle in the pit of my stomach. I didn't know what to do, what to feel. All I knew was that the line had been crossed again, and now I had to decide which way to go. But in that moment I realized something important. This wasn't just about Jesse and me. It was about the choices I made, the boundaries I set or didn't set. It was about who I wanted to be and who I wanted to become. And as I walked away, my heart heavy with uncertainty, I knew that this story wasn't over. Not by a long shot.